Overpaying for anything sucks, especially socks, so why pay $45 for a single pair of grip socks when you can spend less than half? Pure Grip Socks Pro feature our best materials for optimal fit, moisture wicking, and performance at a fair price, just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
Hello and welcome to the Ultimate Football Boot Tier List for 2023, with this list being exclusively made up of top-end models, in other words, the best of the best. And if you guys perhaps would like to see a tier list video for less expensive football boot options, also known as takedown models, drop a like on this one and I might make that happen, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss out on all my latest videos. Please keep in mind that for this particular tier list, all of these rankings are based on my own personal opinions and experiences on these football boots, and also all the boots on this list are current top-end models, meaning that previous generations or limited edition releases will not be included. And finally, if you're interested in any of these new football boots, you can pick them up below their normal retail prices by way of exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the links down below. And with all that out of the way, let's get right into it. The Adidas Copa Pure Point 1 is a gigantic improvement over the Sense Point 1 that it replaces, and while I know some people will have some gripes about them recycling the Adidas Nemesis sole plate and stud pattern and not including kangaroo leather, instead going for cow leather, the overall quality of the leather, the feel and fit and comfort of the football boot, the lighter overall package, and the $230 retail price, which is less expensive than most top-end models, makes this a very attractive option. The Copa Pure Point 1 is an A-tier football boot. The New Balance Furon V7 Pro, arguably the most underrated speed boot currently on the market, retailing at $215, making it less expensive than most of its competition. They are the lightest speed boots currently available, fit incredibly well, have a really unique lacing system, giving you a really clean touch on the ball, and the sole plate and stud pattern is one of the more aggressive options currently on the market. This is easily an A-tier boot. The Nike Premier 3 might not be the most exciting pair of football boots by modern day standards, but if you're looking for something that is really simple, top quality, and super affordable at $110, the kangaroo leather upper of the Nike Premier 3 is not going to let you down. The central lacing system and standalone tongue makes this super comfortable and just offers a really high quality fit, especially for somebody that struggles with slightly wider feet or just an unusual shaped foot in general, while the sole plate and stud pattern, not the most aggressive, certainly not the most responsive, but very simple and easy to get used to. At the price point, there's not much to dislike about these, but it's definitely not as good as you can get. It's B tier. The Adidas Predator Accuracy Point 1, which I have here in mid-cut form, but the boots are also available as lows. I tend to prefer the mid-cuts, particularly through the heel when it comes to fit and comfort, but personal preference is going to play a huge factor there. Retail price on both is $250, and this is easily one of the more unique football boot experiences currently on the market, and a gigantic step up from the Predator Edge that it replaces, which was a bit of a disaster in a few different ways. What I love about the accuracy is the hybrid touch upper. It's not quite the leather that longtime Predator fans really wanted, but it's a leather-like synthetic in a lot of ways in terms of giving you a little bit more substance to the upper, and in general feeling really soft and comfortable. The rubber elements have now been focused into the striking area of the foot, kind of eliminating that all-over grip feel that the Preds have had for the last several generations, and really relating this football boot back to the heyday of the Predator series. Like I said, it's not necessarily a remake of the Predator Mania, but it's the most power boot-like Predator model that we've had in a long time. It's one of my personal favorites on the market as well, and because of the unique experience that it has on offer, the Accuracy Point 1, in my opinion, is an S-tier football boot. The Puma Future Ultimate, the first major redesign to the Future Z concept, in that this is no longer technically a Future Z, and compared to the previous generations, this does have a more normal fit and feel on feet, which you might prefer. You might actually like what they were doing before a little bit better. Again, totally a matter of personal preference, but for me personally, I really like what they've done here. I think the fit and shape is better this time around than what they've done for the last several years. The thin textile upper is great on the ball and super comfortable against your foot. The power tape zigzag Might look cool, might look terrible depending on your opinion. It does absolutely nothing from a performance standpoint. Lockdown is great. You have low cut or mid cut variations, which are almost exactly the same. And the sole plate and stud pattern has gotten a little bit more aggressive than what they were doing before, which I think most people are going to prefer. Price also went up from $200 to $220, but overall they are as good as anything, especially if you're looking for something with a textile/knit upper. For me, this is an A-tier boot. The made in Japan Mizuno Alpha is currently the most expensive non-limited football boot on the market, retailing for $320, which immediately puts it into a price bracket that most people are not going to be able to justify, and rightfully so. With that said, it's very unique as a Mizuno product in that it does replace the Rebula series, but you'll notice there is no kangaroo leather to be found. This is a full synthetic Mizuno football boot with, of course, that incredible made in Japan quality that's still very much apparent. What's interesting about this football boot is the justification is difficult in that technically it does nothing special compared to some of the more flashy technologies in the world of football boots right now, but the refinement, fit, and comfort of this is arguably unmatched. This is, for me, the most comfortable speed boot on the market, and if that's something that you prioritize more than anything, I think there's a lot to like about the Mizuno Alpha. The price is steep, but it's easily an S-tier football boot. The Mizuno Alpha Elite. You might notice that it looks a lot like the Made in Japan Alpha I just showed you, and that's because it is a lot like those. However, they're not made in Japan and technically feature some very small differences compared to that $320 option, but you can get these for a retail price of $200 and basically have 99% of the same experience. Everything that I love about the Made in Japan Alpha is still present on the Elite model for a fraction of the price. This too is an S-tier football boot, and probably the best speed boot that most people won't try. The Nike Tiempo Legend 9 Elite, these guys retail for $230 and in my opinion are still the best option if you're looking for something that has that leather upper feel, this featuring a majority kangaroo leather upper with the added element of the memory foam, giving it a little bit more of that dampened effect. What's unique about the Legends compared to just about everything else on the market right now is it does have a little bit more of that padded feel, which is great from a touch perspective if that's your thing, and also great from a protection standpoint, while still being very lightweight, these still being lighter than most speed boots. It also has a top-notch sole plate and stud pattern. They are incredibly comfortable, and again, on the affordable side as far as top-end football boots go, especially from major brands like Nike and Adidas. I still think there are better leather football boots out there, but in terms of one that does it all, this is really hard to complain about. The Legend 9 Elite is an A-tier football boot. The Adidas X Speedportal Point 1, the flagship speed boot that does carry over from 2022. However, it's important to note that this year, the latest colorways do swap out the carbon fiber Carbitex insert found on the early colorways for a piece of plastic that ultimately doesn't really change the feel of the football boot all that much. It still has a little bit of that spring back effect, perhaps not to the same degree, but the difference, like I said, is extremely subtle. With that said, the retail price is still $250, and I feel like from a component standpoint, that was the most expensive element of the boot, being that it was actually licensed from another company. Nonetheless, the boots as a whole are still fairly unextraordinary compared to other speed boot options out there. I don't think they're the most comfortable. The upper does have a little bit more of a rigid plasticky feel. I don't love the shape of the football boot, and the elimination of the Carbitex insert, which was such a big part of the original marketing story for this product, kind of rubs me the wrong way. I ranked it in B tier last year, and for me, even though I do think the boot has gotten a little bit worse without the carbon insert, I still think it's B tier. The classic, the GOAT, the OG Adidas Copa Mundial, $150 at this point. Retail has gone up significantly over the years, but it's still kangaroo leather all the way through, still made in Germany quality, quite an old school fit and feel by today's standards, and definitely not for everybody, but ranking this anywhere other than S tier would just be wrong. The Puma Ultra Ultimate. Now these came out in 2022 and were the first major redesign to the Ultra series, and while I really like the upgrades to the stud pattern in particular, the boots are nowhere near as light as past Ultra models, and from a fit and comfort perspective, I would argue are nowhere near as comfortable as what they used to be. Given the $20 price increase as well, I just don't think that they're a standout option in a very competitive speed boot category right now. And that's not to say that they're bad in any way at all, but I don't think they're the best option if you are looking for the best of the best. For me, the Ultra Ultimate is a B tier football boot. The Nike Zoom Mercurial Vapor 15 Elite. From a technical standpoint, I don't think it gets more impressive than these. If you're looking for a pair of football boots that will make you feel faster, keyword being feel, because they won't actually make you faster, these do that better than anything else on the market. The flagship feature is certainly the zoom unit that sits underneath the forefoot and toe box area that won't make you faster, but it gives you this really nice springy sensation underfoot and is remarkably comfortable. The sole plate and stud pattern is super responsive and very aggressive as far as traction is concerned, with the Vaporposit Plus upper being really thin, giving you that barefoot sensation with top-notch lockdown and responsiveness as you'd expect from the Mercurial series. At $250 for the Vapor, they're not crazy as far as price is concerned, and if you're a fan of high-tech football boots, I don't see what there is to dislike about the Vapor 15 Elite. For me, this is an S tier football boot. And being that the Superfly 9 Elite is the exact same football boot with the addition of a collar for an extra $25, I don't think they're quite as good a deal from a value for money perspective, being that this offers no true benefit in terms of fit or performance. But if you like it, I think it's justified. It too is an S tier football boot. The Adidas Copa Pure Plus, the laceless leather option from the Adidas brand, a huge improvement once again over the Sense Plus that it replaces, but just like the Pure Point one, the same gripes apply in that it's cow leather rather than kangaroo leather, and you do get the recycled sole plate and stud pattern from the 2017 Adidas Nemesis. With that said, the boots are as good as the laceless Copa has ever been. The leather is super soft. The shape of the boot I think is excellent from a lockdown perspective. It's one of their better efforts with a laceless design, and they're lighter than any laceless Copa has ever been. The price tag is a little bit steep at $280, but if you're into the whole laceless Copa thing and you were wearing them back when they first came out, they are now as good as they used to be, if not even a little bit better. I don't think they're the best leather boots on the market, but again, if you like not having any laces, there's a lot to like about these. The Pure Plus is an A-tier football boot. The Made in Japan Mizuno Morelia 2. This for me is the pinnacle of what a leather football boot can be, not only in terms of the quality of the leather, but the comfort of the final product. There isn't a single thing about the upper of this football boot that I would change. The sole plate and stud pattern is visibly a little bit old school, but the plastic used makes this extremely lightweight. These are lighter than some speed boots, but obviously won't provide the most aggressive traction. This is a football boot for somebody that really wants the perfect blend of old school design but modern quality and refinement. It's expensive as well at $280, but in my opinion worth every penny if you're a fan of kangaroo leather football boots. This for me is an S tier product. The New Balance Tequila V4 Pro is a fantastic reason to buy a laceless football boot from a brand that doesn't have 3 stripes. The retail price is less expensive than all of their laceless options at $215, depending on the colorway, of course, and the knit upper that you get on this football boot really gives you that sock-like sensation. The laceless system itself provides more tension than what you'll find from most laceless options, making for a really good fit and surprisingly decent lockdown, with the sole plate and stud pattern being particularly unique in that you do get these kind of bladed studs along the edges, meaning that when you're pushing off on the edges of your feet, you're getting that little bit of extra bite. I think making this a great option for goalkeepers in particular, even though I'm not really a big believer in boots by position, because the boots have no idea what position you're playing. That feature, though, I think would be great for diving. Nonetheless, awesome football boots, awesome price. If you're into the whole laceless thing, there's a lot to like about these. It's easily A tier. the 2023 edition of the Adidas Copa Gloro. Now, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't include this in the top-end model tier list, but given that I did include the Nike Premier 3, which I thought was fair, it would only be fair to include these. Unlike the Nike Premier, these retail for $10 less at $100 and also do not feature kangaroo leather. Instead, you're going to get cow leather across the entire upper, but the feel of that leather and certainly the thickness of it does give you that really soft padded feel on the ball. The fold over flap tongue is quite old school, but you do have the option, like the Nike Premier, to cut it off entirely. The shape is great. The general design of the upper is very reminiscent of the custom Tony Cruz boots that he's been wearing for a very long time. And the sole blade and stud pattern, again, feels like something that you'd find on a pair of football boots that are much more expensive. They're not extraordinary in any way, but they're extremely well-rounded for the price. The Copa Gloro is B tier. The made in Japan Mizuno Morelia Neo 3 Beta. Again, a very expensive option in today's current football boot market, retailing for just over $300, but the refinement and quality is top notch, as you'd expect from any MIJ Mizuno product. What I like about these is the unique feature set in that you do get the kangaroo leather in the forefoot with the textile through the midfoot, more of a synthetic material in terms of how it actually ends up feeling, with a one-piece upper construction, a super lightweight design, and a sole plate and stud pattern, particularly with conical studs, that does separate this from other speed boot options out there. From a quality and comfort standpoint, it's really tough to beat in the speed category. And again, if you want a leather upper, it's hard to argue that there's anything better than these. However, I do think there's something better, which is why these are A tier. And that's because of the made in Japan Mizuno Morelia Neo 3, the non-beta variation, which is still made in Japan, giving you the same quality of materials as the beta model. However, they retail for under $300, and instead of a one-piece upper construction, feature a standard U-throat with a standalone tongue. Laces run directly down the middle, and you get this really soft synthetic leather material through the midfoot that just feels, in my opinion, more comfortable than that of the beta. The end result being a football boot that is more comfortable and I would argue offers better adjustability overall, with all the same upsides as the more expensive and arguably more technical variation. This is more of a classic take on the Morelia Neo, but with the best materials we've ever seen on this model. The Morelia Neo 3, made in Japan, non-beta, is S tier. The Adidas X Speedportal Plus, this again being a carryover model from last year, but just like I mentioned with the Speedportal 0.1, the latest colorways do swap out the carbon insert for a piece of plastic. That doesn't ultimately change the experience that much, but I'm not in love with the change nonetheless. And honestly, this is a fairly unextraordinary pair of football boots in every objective performance characteristic that you would want from a top-end speed boot. The laceless design doesn't provide the greatest lockdown. There really isn't any weight savings. If we compare it to the previous generation laceless speed boot from Adidas, I don't think these fit anywhere near as well or feel as comfortable. And overall, there are just better speed boot options out there for less money than what these will run you. For me, the Speedportal Plus is B tier. The Puma King Ultimate, depending on who you ask, is a complete disappointment, predominantly because it is a Puma King model without kangaroo leather or any leather at all. Instead, you're getting synthetic material called K Better, which I would argue feels really good. If you're interested in the Puma King because you want leather football boots, don't buy these, you aren't going to like them. But as I talked about in my review, this K Better material actually relates to the thin Teijin synthetic that we last saw on something along the lines of a Nike Mercurial Vapor 8. Pair that up with a very speed boot-esque shape, a one-piece upper construction with the central portion of the upper filled in with this elasticated knit. You end up with a football boot that feels very comfortable, offers a really premium, thin, barefoot feel on the ball without being too raw, and a sole plate and stud pattern that is a little bit on the traditional side, but ultimately feels really nice underfoot. They're not as light as some of the flagship speed boots out there, but they definitely have speed boot-esque vibes about them, and at $200, they are less expensive than most top-end options. If you're looking for something that has that classic Teijin synthetic upper feel, I think there's a lot to like about the King Ultimate, which is why I rate it in the A tier. Whereas the New Balance 442 version 2 Pro, if you are on the market for a pair of leather boots, would be an excellent choice, especially for those that are a little bit more budget conscious. These retail for $130, and for that price, you're getting some really nice kangaroo leather through the forefoot and toe box area, a more traditional shaping with a central lacing system and standard U-throat tongue construction, a low-cut design, a package that is much lighter than you would expect them to be, these being lighter than a lot of speed boots, and a sole plate and stud pattern that feels like something that would be on a $200+ product. For $130, you simply can't go wrong. They're also available in regular as well as wide fit variations, as are all of New Balance's current top end models. For me, this is easily an A-tier football boot. The Adidas Predator Accuracy Plus, the laceless option in the new Pred lineup that is a gigantic improvement over the Edge Plus, which was one of the worst top-end Predator models, if not the worst top-end Preds that I think Adidas has ever put out. Nonetheless, longtime fans of the series are not going to be into the concept of a laceless Predator, but if you like laceless boots in general, I would argue that this is the best one currently on offer from the Adidas brand. And just like the Point 1, you get that hybrid touch upper, you get the rubber elements. They've actually taken advantage of the extra space freed up by the laceless system by giving you some extra rubber kind of in the sweet spot of where you would want to strike the ball, which is super noticeable and feels awesome with the laceless model compared to the Point 1. However, they're still laceless football boots, so you do lose out on adjustability. They're certainly not as responsive. They don't offer as much lockdown, and of course, the fit typically is going to suffer when compared to the Point 1. They also retail for more at $280, but again, if you like the whole laceless thing, the Accuracy Plus is as good a laceless boot I think Adidas has ever made. For me, this is easily an A-tier football boot. The Nike Phantom GX Elite Low, the replacement for what I thought was a very disappointing football boot in the Phantom GT2 that ultimately takes the boot in a very different direction but with the same concept, in that grip knit is the new key piece of technology highlighted on this particular colorway in dark and light gray, and it really does have this grippy texture across the entire upper without being overly sticky. It's the perfect amount of grip is the way that I'd like to describe it, and even in comparison to the Predator with the rubber elements, it's definitely not as sticky, but because it's incorporated into the material itself, the touch feels so natural and so consistent across the entire foot. The low-cut design does leave you with exposed laces, which personally I prefer. There's just less bulk this way, and the new sole plate and stud pattern I also am a really big fan of, a little more aggressive than what we had with the Phantom GTs. At $250 for the low-cut model, I think there's a lot to like about these, especially if you're after something with some extra grip on the ball. The Phantom GX Elite Low, in my opinion, is S tier. And just like the Mercurials, the Phantom GX is also available in mid-cut form, where you do get the additional collar, but they also add in the lace cover made from elasticated Flyknit, last seen on the Phantom Vision series. There are some minor differences with the way that the laces connect to the upper as well because of this lace cover design, but in general, the boots fit, feel, and perform the same as the lows. They just cost an extra $25. Personally, I could go without the extra bulk from the lace cover itself. It's just extra material that's ultimately not doing anything. No added grip to be found here, but if you like the look of it, or perhaps just like the feel of mid-cut football boots, the extra $25 is definitely justified, which means the mid-cut Phantom GX Elite is also S tier.